What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome back to Leafs Digest. Breaking down Game 56 of the regular season, the final game of the regular season. Leafs lose this one to the Winnipeg Jets 4-2. Crappy game all around, just slow. Basically like watching a men's league game. It was kind of like watching you and I play intramural hockey in our first year of university, honestly. It was sloppy, turnovers everywhere. It wasn't too much intensity. Kind of looked like the boys were playing 11:45 game, either coming from a getting ready to go to the bars, whatever the situation was. It was ugly. But Leafs finished this one still in first place in the North Division. They locked that one up a little while ago. One thing that is pretty cool about this, though, the Leafs played the last 100 games of the regular, or 100 days, of the regular season in first place in the North Division. For the last 100 days, they dominated first place in the North Division, and ultimately, I think that's something as fans we're going to take pride in going into the playoffs here. But let's break down tonight's game. So, one of the big guys that was out tonight, Mitch Marner, doesn't play. Just a rest night, nothing concerning. We don't have to worry about that at all. He's in attendance. Bogosian still stays out. Hyman still out. I'm under the impression that Hyman is really just resting. I think he's probably good to go at this point. I don't think there's much concern there. There's no point in playing him, right? Like, don't bring him back. But we do get to see an interesting first line, and I want to know what your thoughts are on it. Adam Brooks, Austin Matthews, and Alex Galchenyuk. What do you think of seeing that line together? Obviously, that's not where we're going to see going forward, but how did you feel about that one?
You mentioned it last pod. Our coach is really comfortable, Sheldon Keefe, with mixing up the lines.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of fluidity, and in a night where it really doesn't matter, to give these young guys a chance to play with Matthews, definitely someone that even it seems like the vets look up to. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, and I think Brooks is a guy who's impressed all season long with pretty minimal sample size. So it's a cool, respectable nod to these guys in a really meaningless game to say, hey, we respect you too. We're going to put you on the top line for this game. Doesn't matter a ton. And it wasn't the result we wanted, but, still a close game nonetheless. And it was pretty fun to watch. You're right. That was an interesting first line setup. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I just think it's funny. Like, you get to see Adam Brooks fire up there on the first line. This guy he scored like 130 points in the WHL, and then he slots in with the Leafs. I think he was a 4th round pick or 5th round pick at some point a couple years ago, and he slots in with Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton on that 4th line, and he's playing good, like playing really well with them, kind of getting some points here and there, and he's probably looking around saying, oh my God, these guys were my idols growing up. And now he's playing with the best goal scorer in the NHL. I'm not even going to say maybe one of the best. Like, he's just the best goal scorer in the NHL.
He's the best.
We crowned him a couple weeks ago, and that's just, we're going to roll with that. He is the best goal scorer in the NHL. And he's probably like, wow, Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton and now Austin Matthews on the first line with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Doesn't get too much better than that, honestly. But it's just kind of cool to get to see that happen. It's a crappy game. Like, it's boring. It was slow, and it was like I was falling asleep watching it almost. But you get to see that. It's like, okay, that's kind of fun. Good for him. And I think he's going to be someone that we will see at some point in the playoffs. I don't know what role he's going to play or if it's really going to be anything significant, but we'll save that for one of the episodes coming up as we preview the playoffs and over the next week. Another thing that I did see, which I actually wanted to kind of dive into here, is the Foligno stays with that Tavares and Nylander line. And I think they looked good again. They don't score tonight. They didn't produce anything on the stat sheet. But overall, I think they looked good. Tavares getting shots on net. Nylander getting shots on net. Foligno banging bodies, winning battles. Like, it's just, that's what you'd like to see from that line. They're not going to score every night. It's expected. But I'm again thinking that this is going to be a line that we see in game 1 of the playoffs here. Josh, how'd you feel about that one?
I think so too. And that's a line that's going to need a little bit of grit. I mean, Willie's not going to do a whole lot in terms of physicality. Johnny T, he is actually someone who won't stray away from it, but he definitely doesn't go out there initiating it. He's one of our top end players, one of our biggest contracts. We don't want him to be putting him out there in injuries way. So it's nice to have a guy like Foligno who's got the skill to sort of blend in, and he got the physicality to protect those higher end players. And you're right, they didn't get any points tonight. They didn't blow you away, but still, you like what you see, and you can't oversample really anything. You look at that one game tonight that happened. It was overall disappointing that we lost, but it was still a great game from that line. So I think that going into the playoffs, it's something we'll probably still continue to see.
Yeah. another thing here too, Mikheyev and Engvall both get on the score sheet tonight. Those are two guys who I would say maybe they're not. I honestly, they're kind of fighting each other, but they're fighting for spots in that lineup come playoff time because they are replaceable guys. Engvall, I don't really think is slotting into a spot at this moment. Mikheyev was probably sitting on that third line as is right now, but he is somebody that you could easily see come out. Both of them having goals tonight, I feel like that's good for both of their both their confidence heading into the playoffs here. And especially Mikheyev as a guy who just constantly hitting posts and getting like offside calls against them when he scores, or guys in the crease, or someone touching the goalie, and it has nothing to do with him. It's unfortunate to see those happen, but good to see him get on the stat sheet again before going into the playoffs here. Got to keep the confidence high and have him feeling like, hey, I can produce and I can be a part of this going forward.
Mikheyev, me and you have talked about it before. I can't remember if we mentioned it on a pod, but he's really like a poor man's Michael Grabner. Yeah. And if you want to have that on your third
breakaways,
legit. And he's so snake bitten. You said it too. And I think in the playoffs, when you've kind of had that time to settle in with your group, you see players like Mikheyev who were snake bitten through the year make a breakthrough because they're not, you've already kind of got through the hardest part of it. You already feel like you can't score, but you're in the lineup because you're still getting a ton of opportunities. He breaks through tonight, which was awesome to see, but he's someone that I think could actually play a massive, massive role in the playoffs. And, not to agree with everything you said, Philly, but I also think that
hey, there's nothing wrong with agreeing with what I said.
Oh, but it's always nice when we fight, right? So I think Mikheyev is a great guy that's going to be popping up in the playoffs for us. But when I look at Engvall, I do tend to agree that no matter how hot this guy gets, it's probably just not going to happen. I mean, we got a contending team here, and he's doing everything you can possibly ask of him, which is a sad part of it all, but it's just a testament to our team when you look at a guy who's averaging, I think they said over the past 10 games, it was 0.8 goals. So he's heated up at the right time. Unfortunately, I don't think it makes a difference for the Leafs in the greater scheme of things.
Yeah, a little bit of too little, too late right there. I think
Exactly.
If he really wanted a spot in this lineup, he had to be doing stuff like that earlier on. Obviously, he's not going to be going 0.8 goals a game throughout the whole year. You don't expect that from a guy like Engvall, but more production from earlier on would have given him a shot at actually staying within this lineup going forward. But I think it also just gives him an opportunity to be higher up on the depth chart come playoff time, because it's very unlikely that through playoff series or an entire playoff run, you see the same 12 forwards and 6D every single night. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of guys coming in and out of the bottom of the lineup, whether it be the bottom 6, just the bottom 3 in the forwards, or it be the bottom 2 in the D pairings. There's a lot of change and movement that happens in today's NHL, and to have that opportunity to see the depth that we have there, and for those guys to show out and say, hey, here's what I can do. I want to be next. I've got next. Give me that opportunity. When it comes, I want that opportunity. It's really good to see for the Leafs coming down the stretch here, closing out this season. Just builds that competitive nature, as we mentioned. So I like to see that. One more thing kind of before we wrap this one up. It was a tough way to end the regular season and just a boring game, but something we did harp on a little bit after last game, and it was kind of the theme of our last pod, was special teams sucking. Just there's no other way to put it. They suck. And tonight, they didn't score, but I think the special teams looked a lot better, and specifically the power play, because the penalty kill I haven't really had any problems with at all. I don't think they've been a problem, and I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, they need to do this better or they need to do a lot more, because I can't pinpoint anything on that penalty kill. But the power play, they looked better tonight.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And you bring up a good point when you mentioned earlier how, that Mikheyev line, not the Mikheyev line. You were mentioning the line that you thought looked pretty good tonight, and I agree with you too. They didn't score anything, the Johnny T line, but it's the eye test. And same thing with the power play. I felt as though the puck movement was way better. The opportunities were way better, and you're not always going to score. You got a 2-minute window of time to get something done. But nonetheless, we still were moving around the puck and getting opportunities. So it's not always going to go your way, but the opportunities is what you ask for. The opportunities is the reason Mikheyev is still in the lineup. So it's good to see all of our players getting those, even when they're not converting. Useless game, but it's promising for the future.
Yeah, even just player movement was nice to see. Like it wasn't just snapping the puck around and everyone's standing still, because that's easier to defend still. It was guys cycling in and out, changing spots, guys going from Tavares moving from bumper to half wall, Matthews sliding into the slot, guys at side of the net rotating out into the corners, D-men moving across and being mobile across the blue line. Like, those are things you need to incorporate into this, and it promotes creativity, really, and makes the defenders and the penalty killing unit have to adapt and move around, which can be difficult for them at times and difficult for them to keep up.
And I gotta say, it's interesting that we're noticing this in a night where Mitch Marner isn't in the lineup.
Yeah, I think it kind of just goes back to us talking about, like, obviously we're not the ones who fixed the Leafs power play, but like, it goes back to us talking about, like, there was so much star power on that first unit. Now you take away like 1B on that power play, really, and everyone's like, okay, now what do we do? Like, now and other guys need to fill in roles, and there's just more movement because it's less rigid, I think.
Yeah, it's awesome that more guys. I mean, the circumstances tonight, we wouldn't have just taken Marner out of our play or out of our power play for necessarily the fun of it, but it's great to see that we have depth that can play on the power play. It was never a mystery to us, but I agree, some nights, like we said last pod, there's just too many guys out there who are looking to create and finish at the same time, and it's just, it can get a little muddled. And then when the whole dynamic is set up around the two-man game of Marner and Matthews, that gets easy to stop. And that's why I think we've seen our second power play unit break through a little bit more recently, because not only do they get the second layer of defenders, but there's a new game plan that comes into place when those two aren't on the ice together.
Yeah, I agree. Well, again, tonight was a bit of a sloppy game. It was slow. There wasn't much energy to it. Guys were basically just waiting to get out of here and get the playoffs going. We already know who we're playing in the next round. The Montreal Canadiens sitting, waiting for us to come out there. And I'm really excited about it. But as far as tonight's game goes against the Jets, finish this regular season, it didn't jump off the page for me. It wasn't overly exciting. Josh, is there anything else you got to say about tonight's game?
Campbell still looked good. Another guy who didn't get the win. His save percentage won't look too pretty, but eye test wise, it's funny. I think we went into this game really with zero expectations, or at least I did. I know you want to go into playoffs feeling good, but this is a Stanley Cup contending team. We're not going to fret over the last game of the season. I still think Campbell made a case for why he is going to be the starting goalie in the playoffs. We'll break that down more, Philly. I know we're planning on releasing a video addressing a whole bunch of things about the upcoming playoff matchups, but not too worried by tonight. I know you sound, taken aback by it, but personally, I'm not too worried about it.
Yep. Well, that's about it for this episode. Breaking down game 56 of the regular season, closing out the regular season, first in the North Division, third division title in Leafs history, first since 2000-2001 season. Leafs 100 days consecutively in first and North Division of the regular season. Pretty cool stat to hear that one. Pretty just dominant kind of over the last little stretch. They lose this one to the Jets tonight, 4-2. Empty net goal to close it out, but not too much concerning here. We still feel good about the team. Marner out, Hyman out, Bogosian out, and then you get Foligno staying on that second line, looking pretty good again, and then just weird line combination with Brooks, Matthews, Galchenyuk up there at first. But over the next week, we will be releasing videos breaking down what's to come in this first playoff series against the Habs since sometime in the 70s, I'm pretty sure, the last time they played each other in the playoffs. So that's pretty exciting. I'm sure our parents are going to be real excited about that one. They're going to be pumped about that rivalry. But make sure you stay tuned to the Leafs Digest page, subscribe, and go check out our friends at the Raptors Digest, because although the Raptors are done, those guys are going to be fired up for an opportunity at a lottery pick here. So if you love the Raptors, you love the NBA, go check out their content as well. But stay tuned to what we're going to be bringing over the next week before the first playoff game, Thursday, May 20th at 7:30 p.m. against the Montreal Canadiens. Goody, great chatting with you again tonight. That's all she wrote.